death of 20-year-old Bowling Green State University student Stone Foltz after a fraternity initiation.
Horrifically hazed, lots of abuse.
Several sororities got shut down during recruitment because of hazing practices.
Well, hi everyone, it's Isabella here and welcome back to the channel. So today's video, I'm so excited to dive into this topic. We are going to be discussing Greek life, okay? So you guys know what I'm talking about, or if you don't know, we are talking about the culture of sororities and fraternities. And honestly, if it's a cult or not, we're going to dive into some of the dark problems with it and stuff that I don't think we've talked about enough when it comes to just this topic in general. We're going to be diving into the history and topic of Greek life as a whole, sororities, fraternities, you name it. And additionally, we're also going to be diving into some of the really dark shit that's gone down in Greek culture and so much more. So before we hop into today's video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button down below. And real quickly, let's take a moment to thank today's sponsor. All right, y'all, let's have a conversation about our cars. So if you guys do or don't know, I love swimming during the summertime. Oh, love it. Here's the problem. I'm forgetful and I may or may not leave a wet towel or two in my car. That does make my car smell horrible. Okay. It happens to the best of us. Everyday, regular living, you name it, your car gets a little bit funky. All right. To keep my car smelling fresh, I have been obsessed with a brand called Drift. So if you guys don't know, Drift is not your everyday air freshener. Drift is an incredible company that offers cruelty-free, vegan, and pet-safe air fresheners for your car and also your home. So they have stone, metal, and they also have wood air fresheners. So I did have this one that's a clip-on that I can stick on my car. So I actually got the scent Grow, which has a hint of citrus and mountain greens. It's so fresh and clean. Oh, baby, it smells so good. If you are completely obsessed with fragrances and air fresheners and trying different ones just like me, you also can join their subscription option where you could have a new fragrance sent to you every single month, which is a total steal. And for all of my viewers today, you guys can get started with trying out Drift and go into the link in the description below or pin comment and use code Isabella55 to get 55% off of your order today. Thank you so much for Drift for sponsoring today's video and keeping my car smelling incredible. And now let's get into today's video. So let me give a little, idea of how I got into this. So we're getting closer to August, right? We're getting there. I remember when I started college in 2018, I went to Kansas State University, K-State, for like a semester on campus, okay? I did one on campus, the rest I did online because that's just how I am. However, I remember looking around and walking to my dorm and just kind of getting everything figured out right before class started. And I remember seeing a shit ton of girls in very similar summer dresses all together for something that was apparently connected to sororities. And I was over here like, what the f is this? I didn't even understand it. So I kind of started doing some digging on my own. And from what I learned and checking out all these different sororities and things that were accessible to me, honestly, for what I saw, I just knew it wasn't for me because one, I was like, I am so hyper independent. I have to be on my own. Like I need to. But also from what I learned, I was like, I don't want to drop crazy money to be told what to do, to have to attend certain events and be around a group that I don't even know I'll vibe with yet. All those things, that was just my personal experience and I never did. However, still, there was many other things that I didn't even know when it comes to this culture. There was a lot of stuff that I heard and it made me really fascinated and want me to dive into this today. Now, additionally, you guys probably have seen a lot of different things pop up when it comes to Greek life rushing and everything happening. Actually, a lot of you guys probably going to know what I'm talking about when I discuss Bama Rush. I actually am planning on doing a very specific, thorough deep dive on Bama Rush in late August, so definitely stay tuned for that. But let's kind of give a good preface of what the hell is this? Now, I know my audience is critically thinking, okay? I know you guys are aware that I am not shitting on everyone that was a part of a fraternity, sorority, you name it. I'm not saying everyone is horrible and evil, okay? What I think can exist at the same time is, while yeah, there could be great benefits, there's also a dark reality to it, and both things need to be talked about. So fraternities have been around for a very, very long time. Of course, they are predominantly men. When it comes to sororities, they are predominantly women. Now, here's the deal. Fraternities have been around for a good long while, okay? Fraternities actually originated in the late 18th century. They were known as Greek life organizations that were meant for men to get together for literally anything. So it would be more academic, there would be studying, there would just be connections, overall community support, you name it. But when it comes to other marginalized communities, just so many different people, many people did not have that type of community. If you were a white man back in the day, honestly, it's not like you were going to get turned away from much, all right? You were able to buy land, do literally whatever you wanted, while there was many different people people who didn't have access to those kinds of rights or anything. So they were initially established first as secret societies, literary clubs for male students in colleges and universities. So they were aiming to foster friendship, intellectual growth, and mutual support. However, okay, maybe it started off wholesome. Maybe it was just a kind little way of like a best friends club type thing. That's cute. I love that. So the first fraternity ever was actually started December 5th of 1776, was known as Phi Beta Kappa in Williamsburg, Virginia. John Heath, Alexander Brown, and William Short were the individuals who actually created and started this entire organization to this day. So after this, the idea and concept grew really popular and started spreading to any other colleges and has essentially developed to what we know today. However, of course, as we know, it took a long time for even women to be able to have access to this education system. And finally, after that, of course, it was hard to be able to feel safe there, have access to the same groups, education, just everything in general. And so with that, it was honestly a power move because that was when sororities started popping up. Now, a sorority, the goal with this was again to kind of be a united front. There was a lot of problems when it comes to the first discussion of sororities because, for example, even back in the day, gossiping was just a horrible, horrific thing. Even though if we really pay attention to it, gossiping actually was a really great way for women and individuals to share information and bring awareness and discuss problems in their community and world. It was able to help people feel not so alone, and a lot of people during this time did feel alone, especially if they were pursuing things that were in a male-dominant industry. 1851, a sorority and the first sorority called Aldefine Society was born. Now again, this is a huge accomplishment for women. Of course, that didn't come without any problems or boundaries. Anything that was started like this was always going to be a problem or issue when it comes to, well, a lot of men, okay? But it succeeded and kept growing and pick up in success, and now it is actually known as the Alpha Delta Pi, which, I mean, that's a cute name. I don't know who's making these names, but I with them. Its founding members were Eugenia Tucker Fitzgerald, Octavia Andrew Rush, Ella Pierce Turner, Elizabeth Williams Mitchell, and Sophronia Woodruff Dews. Girl boss. I think that's cool. And honestly, especially if we think about when this stuff was initiated, this was so significant for women who were trying to pursue higher education, because stepping into an organization like that, already being shunned, mistreated, and struggling honestly because they didn't have community, this is a great way to have a united front with women and be able to push boundaries, help individuals get access to whatever they needed, and overall just safer in general. So the whole origination of the concept was honestly really good, and the goals were really great behind it. Now, Greek life, as we know, has been around for a very long time, and it has progressed throughout many different ways. For example, you actually can have more connections if you're in a sorority. I actually know many people who have been able to get better jobs, opportunities, or just overall connections throughout their life simply because they went and attended some form of Greek life, whether that was a sorority or a fraternity. Additionally, it's also allowed other people to just feel safer on campuses and be able to connect with people who have similar cultures, backgrounds, and so much more. Also allowed for people to expand their interests and try other things and do good for the world. And that's something that a lot of people do, is utilizing these groups to help out with charities and just overall do good in the world, which can be really great. Now, another thing we're fascinated with is the tight-knit culture, the similarities per each group, the protection in each group. Now, of course, many people recognize this and are fascinated by the posts about sorority and fraternity life and things that go on. However, with all these good things that we've talked about, there's many things that many of us have clocked and seen that are horrible, uncomfortable, and many other dark stories that have happened. Again, I'm sure that there's going to be many people who've actually had negative experiences from fraternities or sororities. So if you are someone who has been impacted by that, again, tread lightly with this next conversation because we are going to talk about very sensitive discussions. Diving into this, of course, with any group, any organization, there's going to be some problems. You can't be perfect in any way. However, there's some that have more issues than others, and there's also other problems within it. So we're going to dive into some of the really negative, dark stories that are connected to this, experiencing racism, being completely mistreated throughout the entire experience, and just so much more. Really controlling weird shit, you know what I mean? But what I will say, one of the really dark things that I've noticed that's popped up a lot has been abuse, protecting abusers, and so much more. And getting into these sororities or fraternities is no joke. There's a lot of assumptions that say some people who had family members or parents who are a part of fraternities or sororities sometimes get first pick, allegedly. If you literally had a relative that was a part of a sorority or fraternity, someone might specifically go out of their way to pick you in order for you to be a part of their group because, you know, you have connections. Some of them are very, very picky, and there's a very specific look. When I'm thinking of sororities, when I looked at very specific large sororities, just from my personal experience at K-State, I saw predominantly skinny white women, okay? Now, again, nothing wrong with being that. I'm just saying that was the predominant group of what I saw, which to me was like a red flag. You know, why is it that there is literally no diversity? Honestly, I feel like this idea is opening up some members to be really picky about like looks and if you would maybe make the sorority look better. So if you are maybe by society standards pretty, you know what I mean, or their version of pretty, there might be a possibility that they might pick you. Or even fraternities, for example, if you fit a specific style, whatever the case may be, you might have far more priority and people are going to want you more, as shitty as that is, versus somebody who doesn't fit that description. So with joining and trying to get started, you're going to be going to different events to kind of have the members feel you out and see if they like you or not. Now, your goal is to literally give a good first impression, make connections, and do everything you can in hopes of getting into this absolutely insane group at the end of the day. Now, once all of this is done, you are able to make essentially a list of sororities that you'd be interested in from the most prioritized one that you want to get into and then to the least. After that, you actually are offered a bid if you were picked for one of them and you were able to take it and accept because that's their offer to them, or you don't. Either way, that is what it essentially looks like for you. So after that though, we get into initiation processes. So a lot of people deny and say that this doesn't exist, that this isn't real, or it's not that bad. However, we've come to realize that when it comes to Greek life, there's a heavy amount of initiation processes that are culty as fuck and super abusive and neglectful. So actually, for example, you guys know what I'm talking about, or if you don't know, hazing. That is a huge problem in our world today with Greek life and hazing, a lot of the times in the fraternities. Now, hazing can really vary. There could be serious amounts of drinking. There could be very risky things that they are told that they have to do in order to be a part of this. So much crazy shit I've heard has happened, and I want to kind of dive into some of the crazy problems that's gone on when it comes to the Greek life in general, but that is actually something that's popped up a lot because there's some people who have actually died from hazing because it's taken to a different extreme. The problem is though, is because of the tight-knit security and sometimes cult behavior with some of these organizations, not all of it gets out. Some people are protected and so much more. And that also includes many other horrible things that happen as well, like rape, assault, so many other horrible things that happen. And a lot of people are forced into silence because of the group organization and how people have connections. But when it comes to a lot of assault, abuse, and crazy shit going on, the fraternities have a huge hand in it. It is absolutely disgusting. There's many colleges that I've personally seen who have gone out of the way to protect abusers, but not the victims themselves. So now we are going to dive into the dark reality of the Greek life. So again, buckle up. This is a lot. We're talking about assault, abuse, personal experiences from people who are part of these organizations, and so much more. And there are thousands of submissions all across the board that you guys can find on Reddit and a simple Google search. But we're kind of focusing on this article and some examples of how up some of this stuff can get. Again, some of these are anonymous. Some of these are a lot to take in. Keep that in mind. Prioritize your mental health, please. This first one says, I was pledging a fraternity my freshman year. We were at an off-campus house when the older member said that they had something planned for another member who had lavaliered his girlfriend. So if you guys don't know what lavaliered is, it's pretty much like bestowing some sort of like necklace or some sort of something that's connected to Greek life that only a partner or someone super connected to a individual in the fraternity can give, you know, that kind of stuff. So that would again be like if I had a boyfriend that was a fraternity and he gave me something and it's like, oh my God, yay. And I have the letters and it's like it's an honor. I don't mentally comprehend how that's of any significance. It's a necklace. It's like T for Troy in High School Musical, like big whoop. Nonetheless though. So suddenly a group of the guys grabbed this man and held him down. They tied him to a chair and they took him out in the backyard and told him why they were doing this. They proceeded to dump 2 large buckets of a substance over him. The smell was horrendous. And I asked what it was. It was told it was 2 weeks worth of feces, urine, vomit, and other bodily fluids contributed by the members of the house who had lived there. A friend of mine was assaulted during a frat party. She and another girl were violently grabbed by a boy on their breast and backside. This was caught on camera and was clearly non-consensual. So my friend went up against him in court for assault, but he claimed that it was consensual. After his parents paid a ridiculous amount of money, he got off with a slap on the wrist. He had to attend a class on sexual harassment and did 10 hours of community service. Now since then, that same fucking guy was allowed to just attend the fraternity and everything else still. He is allowed to go to college and do everything. However, this friend was traumatized, had a lot of anxiety, and was going through so much because of this experience. Assault is a huge problem. Assault, rape, all of that is a huge issue when it comes to college. The data on this, I will show on the screen, shows that this is a very frequent occurrence. It happens a lot. It is horrific. It is disgusting. Now, again, I am not saying everyone in Greek life is fucked and horrible. However, the system that can be great to provide access to benefits, but can also be a fucked up thing with hazing, with control, and with protecting people who are abusers. This other submission says that during my undergrad, they were accepted as a pledge. The activities were forced into including an incredible amount of beatings. We were punched in our chest 7 times in honor of the founders weekly. We were hit with paddles until our backsides developed massive scabs from our skin being broken. The mental abuse was equally destructive. I was disillusioned by all the violence. I ended up quitting. Sadly, not belonging to the group still haunts me. The public mission is still very attractive. The fraternity does all kinds of great work. Too bad the initiations must endure life-threatening abuse to join. This next submission was, during pledging, one night I was handcuffed to a classmate, put in a small car trunk, and driven around and made to do multiple tasks. I still think about what could have happened had we been in an accident. The same night, another pledge was asked to pretend to hold up a convenience store using a toy gun. This could have led to a horrific outcome had it progressed. During the same time frame, fraternities forced pledges to play pledge football, which was tackle football without any pads of protection or any official referees. The university ultimately banned pledge football after several broken bones and other injuries. The Greek system should be abolished. Next story, my good friend Tim Piazza, whose story was covered by USA Today, was forced into drinking himself quite literally to death while rushing a frat. Bad experiences at frats don't always just mean douchey bros kicking girls out after a hookup or disgusting living conditions. The culture can be and has proven to be quite deadly. Next, I lived in a university's Greek row area, but I wasn't in a sorority. I still lived in a house of girls though, so we would be invited to a ton of frat parties since a lot of the girls were dating or hooking up with brothers. One night we were at a massive party at a different fraternity house and I ended up getting roofied. One of the frat boys said that he would make sure I got home just a few blocks away and help me get out of the party. Everyone trusted him because he was part of our group that hung out all the time. Instead of taking me home immediately, he took me to his house first and took advantage of me. The next morning, things were fuzzy, but I remembered enough to know what happened. I told my housemates, but they said I wasn't allowed to say anything since the other girls in the house had a crush on him, and there was no way I wasn't a willing participant. I couldn't tell his frat brothers because I knew they would support him over me, and I couldn't tell anyone else because I knew it would become a huge deal and I would lose a ton of friends. Fraternity misogyny has such a tight grip on that group of girls, even though none of us were in the Greek system. Needless to say, I don't talk to a single person from that house or fraternity anymore. My second son was in a fraternity in a school in Arkansas, and they had my son drink high percentage alcohol until he was unconscious. The president of the fraternity came in and took my son to the hospital. His blood alcohol level was 0.4. I found out by receiving a bill from the hospital. My son knew I would react to the fraternity. The president called my older son to let him know that night. I communicated with the president of the fraternity and immediately gave me legal talk. I should have reported to the university, but my son begged me not to since he was, quote, okay. This next one is very sad and I can relate to this, and I'll tell you about my experience in a hot second, but it says, most feminine presenting people who have been to a crowd area like a club, bar, party, concert are familiar with experiences of someone copping a feel as they move past you, and how one of the reasons this is so frustrating is that before you know what's going on, the creep has disappeared into the crowd. One night, at least 5 years ago now, I went to a frat party with some friends and this happened. Someone was trying to walk by me and it was that typical hand on the small of your back, but somehow we managed to grab my entire boob. I guess the boob grab took too much time though, because before he snuck off into the crowd, I was able to grab the back of his collar of his shirt and yank him back. I don't remember the exact series of events, but after an exchange of a lot of yelling that no one could honestly hear because of the loud music, I ended up being the one to leave because he was, quote, just trying to get through the crowd. The next time a similar thing happened at a party, I grabbed the guy's neck with both hands, at which I also was the one to leave, arguably a little bit more fair, but I stand by it. The second story didn't happen at a frat house, but Greek life was really ubiquitous both on and off campus at my large university. I definitely shaped the landscape for off-campus house parties in general. I can't even count how many other times this has happened, but without consequences. This is something that I'm going to tell you right now has happened a lot to me, actually. And again, I'm telling you my personal experience. It stresses me the out thinking about it. When it comes to get-togethers, bars, parties, and the Greek life, I think that the Greek life has protected a shit ton of abusers. I literally have gone so many places to bars, to get-togethers, things like that, to like hang out with friends. I've even gone by myself to some places to meet new people. And I don't drink a lot because I'm very nervous of not being able to protect myself. I just naturally don't do that. That's not really my vibe. That's my personal thing though, okay? No one, drunk or not, should be taken advantage of. Period. No excuses at all. I'm going to tell you right now, I have been grabbed so many times by people who have fallen under this category. I have been touched, I have been grabbed, I have been kissed on, absolutely everything without my consent, just random strangers doing it. There is nothing I can do. Sometimes they slip away, sometimes their friends will laugh with them and protect them and say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. This is a problem. It has happened way too much, and it honestly pisses me off seeing so many of these stories and even reflecting on my own, right? Reflecting on my own experiences from people who I knew were a part of some of these organizations who were protected more. And that's what pisses me off. No one wants to dislike things that were put in place to help other people. The entire foundation was to help bring more people together, community, be able to provide really great access to things and so much more. And honestly, have a fun ass college experience, which I think everyone should. However, I think it's developed to where there is a lot of sexism, misogyny. There's a lot of assault that has happened, especially in these organizations. There's been insane amounts of protection of abusers and rapists in these organizations. And there's also been issues like racism and so much more that's happened, all because they're allowed to get away with it because it's partially a free-for-all. And especially if these areas have a lot of money, they have parents and people who have connections that will allow them to do whatever they want. There's not much that people can do to protect themselves. So unless you got money, unless you have people that have connections, unless you have a parent that will sue the out of someone or hold them accountable, there's not much that is going to happen at all. And it's terrifying to say the least. Now with this, a lot of people debate if there are cult mentalities or characteristics involved. One, I honestly think there is a lot of similar characteristics when it comes to Greek life and just other cults in general that I've actually read into. So for example, the control that is inside and outside of the Greek life is very problematic. I mean, for example, there's many sororities that have rules and regulations on what you can or can't post on social media, which I think is kind of odd to me. Don't understand the control or also the requirements, the behaviors, just overall keeping people very similar and knitted together. Additionally, too, I think there's a lot of problems with the protection and the behaviors during it, with the initiations, with how specific they are, with how they pick their members, and in ways that like are a little weird. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of odd if you're going to have a group, for example, that only picks a very specific looking type of person every damn time. It allows for those type of people who look a specific way to have access to things that other people won't. That makes no fucking sense to me. But with all this being said, I think if we look at cult characteristics, I think many of us are it's going to depend on which one you're in or what you've seen, but there can be some where they replicate the list. Maybe they don't replicate the list. It kind of really depends. All I'm going to say is, well, there's a lot of praise for Greek life and there could be incredible things that go on with it. There's also a dark side and a lot of things that aren't talked about enough, and I think they need to be talked about more. So I'm hoping to do an entire deep dive on Bama Rush, like I said, when it comes August, because I really want to do an entire conversation about that. There was a documentary, but I don't think it was done well, in my opinion. So I want to do a right version of it and make it interesting. So that was it for today's video. Comment down below your experiences if you're comfortable, what you think. What do you think about Greek life? Do you think it should be banned? Do you think it should stay here? What maybe there should be regulations in place? Whatever you think, I'd like to hear. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out today's sponsor in the description below and pick a comment. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.